Okay, awesome. Here is this thing. Awesome to be here again. I hope, let's see how it goes. So, and now you might be asked, where is Virpi? I wanted to keep her here because actually a lot of things what I'm going to talk today is done by Virpi and her crew. I'm not being that useful in the RPA side when I was working with VR. And a couple of disclaimers. These are my opinions, not the official company opinions. And I actually no longer work with VR, so when I say we, it means that I'm still VR in spirit, but I try to say we are not us doing something. Okay, so who's Mikael, you might ask? I used to work last year at VR, and why I'm here because some of you might have gone outside and noticed that it's raining, and it's January in Finland. So what VR is going to do about that is that they're an important part of this climate crisis, so we might have snow in the future, hopefully at some point. And I worked there last summer, and I really loved my time there, and because VR was doing RPA, and maybe not everybody of you are familiar with that, they run the trains in Finland, so I wanted that, hey, we're doing awesome stuff, let's go and share it with the community. So who am I? I'm Mikael. Sometimes you see me in a forest shooting arrows at other people, but it's a safe way of shooting arrows so they don't get hurt. I'm a quest to make people happier in software development, and I believe and IT industry in general, and I believe if we take work that is kind of mundane and automated, it makes everybody's life better. Virpi is leading the RPA stuff there, being since 2019 at the VR and leading the different kind of software activities and currently owning the RPA side of things. So what are we gonna, so a little bit about VR. Who is here living currently in Finland? Hands up. Okay, how many of you are familiar with the VR? Okay, so you kind of know what they do. Okay, everybody, like, now you don't need to live in Finland. Which one of you want to know more about VR? Well, we got hands up, so you will get to enjoy a bit. So, as you notice, the RPA is not, by the way, driving the trains. I just wanted to put it there because it looked nice. So, there, typically what I say, what is the thing that, if you go outside of this building, you see a guy on a horse. He's called Mannerheim, and it's an important figure in Finnish history. So I started like, what does VR and Mannerheim have in common? Well, they were both born in 1860s. So if you think that's now 2020, 1860 was a bit different time, not much RPA going around then. PCs were like, electricity, magnets, are they magic? But today we have RPA stuff. We do passengers and items around Finland, so we are Finnish government-owned company, and we don't only operate on rail but also on road. So actually you can see VR trucks every now and then you might be confused, what are they doing? We were mostly in Finland, but also Russia. Bit in Russia, 6,300 people. And if you want to know more, you should come to find our VR people. I will bring them here in the front at the end of the show, and you can find us around the conference and ask us more. Or you can come and talk to, well, you saw many people raising their hands, so at least you get probably some opinion of VR if you ask them after 3 gin tonics in tomorrow's party. So, what are we actually going to talk about today? Is what is the RPA at VR? We are going to go through the history of RPA. When did it started? Was it like when Mannerheim was in his teenage years, or maybe a bit later? So I can spoil you that it was in 2000 something. How we actually decide what to automate? As I like the previous speak because quite often it's mistaken that you want to RPA everything and then you go like RPA. Don't do that, please. Typically, you want to software talk to software, and you don't have a software between this software because IT is hard, and typically you make mistakes. But RPA is better than having human moving data between two systems. We will go a couple of example cases, what actually we have, or VR has done. There's 2 cases we go through. We go a bit like architectural things, You might see familiar slide you saw today, maybe from Siili people, but we are using them for stuff. And then I will tell you what we learned. And because this RPA side is really cool tech, but I want to talk to you about the human side of things. Because when we do this kind of automation and new technology, it's important that we don't forget that it's humans we work with. It's like, how do we work with them so they don't feel, in a sense, that somebody's taking away their jobs, but rather think that they get freed and do things that add more value, and what humans are good at. When I talk about today about Antti-Mac-Robo, that's the first RPA worker piece of code that we have. So where did this all start? So back in 2017, so 150 years old after Mannerheim, the passenger services in VR started to study that, hey, we should start automating things, that maybe we have this some things that have been doing in the same way for a while, and is there something that the technology would enable? Of course, this is not happening first time during that 2017, but this is like occasional things that companies typically do, that you have like, hey, what can we automate? But 2017, not much, there was like outcome that, hey, there's a million things you could do. And 2018, Virpi and her colleagues started thinking that, okay, what should we actually do about this? And they started actually with UiPath and Blue Prism in the early 2018. And during the summer, there was actually some development. And the first two cases that were actually studied was, how many, by the way, did you come by train to Helsinki railway station when you came here? Oh, okay, almost like 50%. Thank you for your services. Contributing to VR, because actually VR operates also the local trains in Helsinki. So they were like managing how to kind of, because there's like Helsinki railway station, there's actually quite many trains coming in and going, so they were investigating that how can we automate that, where is the long distance trains coming, and where should they go and where should they depart from. And then there was the second proof of concept that actually we will talk about a bit later, is that when there's a ticket sales service, comparing that what we think we sold in the service, did we get the money in SAP? So somebody had got this wonderful, everybody loves SAP, right? And doing our RPA with that, but it's really useful. So, but while this UiPath and Blue Prism were in use, somebody got this idea about robot framework, and then there was like this tough discussion that, hey, 2017 was not, maybe that robot framework was not that known for the RPA stuff, so there was this tough talks that, well, do we use this well-known technology or took a bit of dive in the world of robot? But actually robot won, and I will get a bit to that why did VR choose robot framework and not these kind of commercially well-known solutions? So there were a lot of discussions about that. Well, last year, actually the Antti-Mac-Robot started his first workday somewhere in January, and with this kind of sub-automation. Then there was actually, during May, there was a second robot in working, and now there's like two robots. But when I talk about one robot, I mean it's kind of in one process chain, so it can do multiple things, but typically it's works with the same system and same like business flows. And there was a lot of time in-housing. There was also starting the in-housing of the development. So when there was discussion about the RPA software developers. VR actually has a couple now. And 2020, so this year we're not very far, so hard to say. But there's second in-house developer, and they're like ramping up the development. And RPA actually has its own budget, which I think is pretty like crucial. So it's not just a part of something, but it's a thing of its own within the company. So why to choose robot framework? And this is actually why this is kind of the VR's what we had discussion that, okay, what were the reasons? Well, for example, it's quite easy to start with because you don't have this upfront cost. You don't, and especially if, okay, you can have a trial or something, but if somebody has at some point does some development and you do your proof of concept, you do a hackathon and you have your nice proof of concept. And then go 6 months, nothing happens. Like, oh, my license expired, if I want to renew it, cost is X, and which can be quite big. So it was kind of nice that it was, the startup cost was quite low. What the architects loved about Robot Framework, it's that you have code, which means that you can reuse your code, you can have version control, you can do integrations. You get all the stuff, wonderful things you get when you have code, not just the kind of things you do within the UI. No vendor locking, so you can kind of, you don't, if you want to do something else, let's say, especially when we do Python, so someday, which I don't believe is coming anytime soon, but if somebody has noticed, technology moves on, and maybe Robot Framework is not the thing in 3,000 years from now, so, but maybe Python still is, so you don't get this vendor lock that you would have like lots of RPA cases and then somebody is like, okay, now we will quadruple the price, and then you're like, oh, there went my business case, and that can be awkward. And at least VR people that I have interviewed say that it's pretty easy to learn, and it's kind of, there's a lot of information in the internet. And VR seems to love a bit this open source side, so you can go to internet and Google things, and there's open discussion. The Slack group is kind of active, you can ask stuff there. And it's, especially, this is kind of a Finnish thing, but actually if you need to find people who know Robot Framework, that's not that difficult today because, well, we can see all the people here who are living in Finland and at least somewhat acquainted with Robot Framework, so it's kind of also a thing for at least Finnish companies. So, how does VR choose what to automate? There's first this evaluation form, or then you go to talk to Virpi at the coffee machine. That's the other way of going, and then she goes, okay, go fill out the evaluation form, which is kind of like, okay, how is this process? And so it's deemed that, okay, first typically is, even before basically the evaluation form, if it's like, yeah, a potato, and then you're like, okay, this one not. So there is some like filtering before it goes into this process. But of course, the first question always is that should I do it? Should I automate this, or do I do it with normal IT automation? Is there something we could fairly low effort add to the system, or should we do RPA? RPA is a great thing when like bridging the gaps between legacy systems and the new systems coming in. But I think that's a good question always to ask. That do I really want to do RPA? Typically, you end up in the yes, do it in the system, you say no, and then you go and think about the RPA solution. But sometimes, if it's really easy to do the system and just to have a regular IT automation, please do that. Then there's like the technical evaluation, like, okay, if it's gonna require, how much work is it feasible to do? Is this process like repeatable? Like if you probably in the first, if you need to do a huge AI thing for the first thing you do, that's probably not the best time to start. If you want to climb to Mount Everest, I don't suggest that's the first mountain you try to climb, even if you take the helicopter. And then there's like estimation, basic, like what does this cost? Because I think that's all about the business case, because this is still like thing, it's a work to do it, and I think with automation is especially important thing to remember, that it's not just fire and forget kind of thing. Typically you need to maintain it and look after it, so it's like not that, okay, now it's free to run. You always have some kind of cost. But typically even if when you have counting all the maintenance, etc., it's still cheaper. But this is just a pro tip that it's not free. It's like running a factory, this automation thing. Factories are not cheap. Well, basically, VR uses Jira, so if we say that, okay, makes sense, let's put it in the backlog and make it at some point. And sometimes it's like, okay, yeah, let's look at its technology 10 years from now. So, the first case. So this was the first thing that actually got automated and is in work today is the basically ticket system sales. Some of you might have used, how many of you have used VR ticket sales system? Okay, almost everybody. Thank you. You have at least contributed at some point to paying my salary. So basically there was this thing where some people were kind of sanity checking that all payments are going through as they're supposed to go, and it took like 2.5 hours each day for one person, and now Antti Robo does it in 7 minutes. I thought the Mac, maybe Antti gets mad now. Yeah, sorry Antti. So he's doing, and it's like kind of pretty funny because Antti does it every morning, and he sends email like, okay, when we're talking about he sends email to the people who used to do this work and says that, hey, this is the things I did, and so you can actually see the transactions Antti completed, and if Antti is a bit late, and it's 10:05, he usually finishes at 10, 10:05, there's like angry emails to Virpi or slacking or calling somebody, is very worried like, hey, is Antti sick? Is he coming work today? Please don't make us touch us up anymore that much. Antti, you are a great robot, but he has lost his name. We will get to that back later. So, the previous one was basically just checking that the stuff that you have sold was that actually you got the money for it. And second one is this is in development, but quite interesting because even though a lot of the stuff is electrified nowadays in Finland, we are a big country and we have a lot of railroad tracks and some of them are in middle of nowhere, so some of the trains also run with oil. So, but there's like this manual work that somebody needs to check that how many actual oil was used and how much was the market price at the point that it was loaded into train versus what got billed to the company. And this is manual process. And there's like one person full-time working on it. And let's say a robot can do it pretty quickly. Of course, it doesn't scale. Like even if your robot does something in 5 minutes, that takes one person 1 day. You don't, run the robot rest of the time. You're like, okay, you finished 5 minutes. Now go and have a margarita, Mr. Robot. So, but actually this is where it was kind of nice that this is not when you do the first invoices, of course, kind of a lot of work to make all the libraries and such, but it creates the fun. Why we love its code is that, hey, I did this one generic thing, maybe I can use it for some other invoice also. That's something you should it's a good thing to think about. So, yeah, we also saw this is the technological, so there's actually it's hosted in Azure by Sealy. So there's basic stuff, Git, Jira, stuff going on, Jenkins provisioning stuff, robot running stuff, stuff going to databases, emails being sent to liiketoiminta, sorry, this is in Finnish, so liiketoiminta is the business. You learned at least new word of Finnish today. And then they get really upset if the email doesn't come and they're like, did Antti slack? Don't slack, Antti, go back to work. Yeah, so this is the generic, I think this is a bit generic, but basically we have the stuff running, or the VR has stuff running in cloud provided by a service provider. But now we get to, what did we learn actually, or what did VR learn? And I asked them, okay, what did you learn? Is when you do change, it's not, even though the robot or the automation, in a sense, is sometimes even quite easy to do, but it's important that you take the people with you. Because the people who have been working all these things all the years, they might have like good ideas. So for example, I like about this Mac robot story started that everyone was like, oh, this Mac robot person. We don't know if we kind of really need it. And now it's like, okay, if Antti Mac robot hasn't finished his work, 5 minutes after there's like angry calls, what is my RPA doing? And now the people who actually used to do that work are always like inventing new ways of automating, like some of the projects where you're like, oh, let's automate this simple thing. And on the way of doing all this work, it kind of spread the idea that suddenly you have like, oh, there's like these 50 ideas we could do. But it's important that people are taking with and like that they really understand that this is not about, okay, we automate you and then we fire you, but okay, we automate this so you can focus on the customer or you can focus on the work that humans are good at. Humans are really, really, really bad at reading numbers in one place and checking that they are same in the same place, and they are like, corporate zombiness. So try to, but if you have been doing that for a very long time, it can be quite scary because you're like, oh yeah, same with the Industrial Revolution, but people, I think I always said that people are quite important. And if you try to do it on the side, that is kind of a difficult. So when you actually do RPA, make sure that it has like people actually working on it. And by this I mean that don't like double book them. This is the classic corporation. Yeah, you are 50% there and 50% there. So typically it's like you're 100% and 0%. Don't try to chop people in pieces. That's bad. So, well, of course, this is like, I guess, came up quite often that what we kind of verified the stuff we needed to do, or VR did, is that, okay, what do you want to automate? Of course, recurring work, that is kind of automatable, so it's similar. And it's especially good, this monotonous data transfer and validation between different systems is kind of where you can get really big. And like if you want to take something with it, the RPA might sometimes sound scary, but it's not really. It's kind of easy. If VR can do it, so can you. We're getting quite close to the end. We have the VR people. Can you stand up? Stand up VR people. Where are our VR? Oh, there they are. So because I want actually when you upload, please upload to these people, because they have done all the work and I would have nothing to rabble about without them. So please thank Virpi and VP. The questions, let's do it so that when we will, there's the next break. So Virpi and VP will come here and you can come and chat with them, because I'm no longer working with VR, sadly. It means that that I cannot really like answer you any questions, even though you want to ask why are you so late all the time. So, thanks.